What's going on, everyone? This is Gaurav and welcome to my learning channel. So in today's video, we're going to talk about top 3 mistakes to avoid if you're working as a data analyst. But before I get started, just a quick introduction about myself. I have about 15 years of experience working in the data industry. So I started my career as a data analyst and then afterwards I moved towards the data science industry. At this point in time, I'm leading a risk division for a financial institution. All right, so enough about myself. Let's get started. The mistake number 1 is not asking the right questions or not asking the relevant questions. Typically, whenever a new project starts, somebody is going to reach out to you, which could be your partner or your leader. They're going to explain you what the problem is and what is the expectation as a part of the solution. Now, oftentimes it just happens that when they're explaining you the problem, it does not have all the required details in order for you to succeed in that particular project. As a person who is solutioning that particular project, you're expected to ask the right set of questions in the beginning of the project itself. Now, oftentimes it just so happens that people don't do that, but rather they actually skip that part altogether and they focus a whole lot more on the solutioning itself. Now, this does happen because of multiple reasons. For me, when I was starting my career, one of the biggest fear I had in my mind was I didn't want to sound stupid. So I always used to think that if I'm going to ask too many so-called stupid questions, then people are going to think that I'm not up to the mark. And it's very much possible that they're going to think that maybe they should just probably pick someone else to solution this particular problem. So trust me, at this point in time, having worked in this industry for about close to 15 years, there are no stupid questions. As a matter of fact, if you're going to ask right sort of question, then people will feel more engaged in the project, which could be your partner or your leader as well. Now, another common reason why people tend to completely skip the step number 1, when the problem is being explained, we tend to start solutioning the problem itself in our mind. So somebody is trying to explain you the problem, you're already thinking about the type of data you're going to use, the different views you're going to generate, how are you going to automate it, the structure of the overall code. The issue is that once the problem statement is being explained, you will get sufficient amount of time to work on that part. But during the first part of the project, it's really critical that you devote that time to understand the problem statement. Now, if you continue doing this, it's very much possible that every time you're going to deliver the solution, there's going to be some level of discontent from your partners or your leaders. And it's also very much possible that they're going to ask you to repeat a certain part of a project after providing you the required clarity. And if you still continue doing this mistake again and again, it's also possible that you will see some impact during your year end and also your overall career growth. So definitely this is something that you want to completely avoid. Next mistake to avoid is rushing to the build. So whenever you are starting any project, you don't have a very good understanding of some of the key insights that you will get from the data. And at that point in time, it's very much possible that you might think that let's do some quick and dirty analysis just to get a good directional idea about the analysis. And then afterwards, I'm going to come back and I'm going to restart the project and do things more systematically. The problem with this strategy is that oftentimes, whenever you're trying to do any kind of a quick and dirty analysis, you will not get a very good black and white answer. And there's always going to be some level of nuances. And because of which, you might actually do some more analysis and that's going to add more time to if you have already spent 30 to 40% of the overall project time doing the quick and dirty analysis, you won't have an option to go back and restart the analysis and do things more systematically. So at that point in time, you might be very compelled in your mind to think that let's just go ahead and make suitable changes in your quick and dirty analysis itself to make it a final analysis. The problem with this strategy is that there is always going to be something which was missed during the first few stages itself. Maybe the data itself was not clean and you didn't detect it. Maybe it's possible that there was some error that was made at the stage of doing the data merges or the data joins. And because of which your final solution is not going to be either exhaustive or accurate. I used to find myself in a situation like this when I was starting my career. So sometime I will complete the analysis and I will share the findings with my partners and with my leader, and they will point out and the overall number does not tally with some of the other dashboards that we have seen. So if you want to avoid a situation like this, it's really critical that you divide your overall solutioning in 3 main parts. First one is your data preparation and quality check. Second one is your analysis. I'm pretty sure you're gonna do a good job because that's probably the most interesting part. And the third one is the packaging, which is sharing your overall findings with your leaders and your partners. If you like a content like this, then I would request you to go ahead and like and subscribe. This is definitely going to help me and channel a lot. All right, so coming back to the topic. Third and the last mistake to avoid is not documenting your work. But what entails a good documentation? In my mind, a good documentation should have 3 main components. First, a centralized document where you will have all the required details. So it should have details about what was the project objective and what would winning look like for this particular project. And it should also have details about key insights that you have derived as a part of the project and any kind of automation or things like that that you might have done. The second aspect of your documentation documentation goes into your code base. For your code base, you should have a good level of modularization as much as you can, and you should keep on adding the relevant comments wherever it is needed. And the third and last component is collating back and forth related to the final approval or any kind of a change in the scope of the analysis in one place. So if you have all of these details in one place, then I would say this is definitely a good documentation. The problem is that, as you would have realized by now, this is actually very boring work, and it does take a lot of time to complete a documentation like this. So oftentimes, whenever we are working on a project, we would keep the documentation for the last. We will work on the project, we'll give our 100% to complete the project as per the expectation. But once the project is complete, we are not left with enough energy, or for that matter, enthusiasm to go ahead and complete the documentation. And that's where the documentation starts, but then oftentimes it doesn't end, and then you will move on to the next project. The problem is this strategy is, if you have done a really good job in terms of completing your project, then there's definitely going to be a cross question. People are going to come back, your seniors are going to come back, they're going to have more questions about some of the key insights that you have generated. Or it's also possible that people liked your analysis so much that they want to learn from you, and they want to give you a little bit more work for some of the additional analysis. This could spread across few months, or maybe sometimes 6 months as well. And if that happens, then you will find yourself in a situation where you won't remember each and every details of the project that you worked on. So at that moment, it's very much possible that you'll be scrambling to find the required details and just share it with your senior leadership or whoever is asking for those details. And that's going to take a lot more time than the documentation itself. So I would strongly suggest that you should not leave the documentation for the last, but rather keep on working on the documentation as you're working in the project itself. So once you're done understanding what the problem statement is, just dump it in a document. Just put it in like one place. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be very structured. You just need to keep on collating things in one place, so that once you're done with the project, you will come back to this document, you will take a look at all the details that you have captured, and then it will be very easy for you to make it more structured, make it more pretty, or make it whatever format that you need it to be. So hopefully this helped, and I wish you best of luck in your journey. Thank you so much.